amazing to listen to. Volume.
All right, this is long overdue. Long overdue, man. We've got we need about 5 hours to cover the turf we need to really cover.
We might need a couple days, bro.
And that's before we get to talking about your own career.
Exactly. It's not even about me.
We got so much to do. Lenny Kravitz, man, great to meet
pleasure,
you.
Man,
I don't know. I got to think that in the decades somehow we must have met or did something maybe on the phone or whatever, but for the longest time I've wanted to sit and talk music with you, and I'm glad we at least have a little time to do it today.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
How's it feel to be back in New York, man?
It's great.
Where do you live now? You don't live here,
I live
do you?
in Bahamas, where my mom was from, in Eleuthera, and I live in Paris. But I'm from New York, born in Brooklyn.
Yeah, no, I know all that, but I mean, you don't. Do you still keep a place here?
I don't have a place here right now.
So when you get back, you come back. Do you miss the vibe?
I stay with friends. I stay with friends, but I love it.
Lenny Kravitz doing a little Airbnb?
You know?
No, you're
Somebody's couch. Can I stay?
Somebody mentioned me the other day, the first album, Mr. Cab Driver. They said you need to rewrite that as Mr. Uber Driver or something like that, or Mr. Lyft Driver.
Yeah.
But you're always busy, man. You always got a lot of stuff going on, and you got a new record coming out called Raise Vibration, which is coming out towards the end of the year, right? A little ways down the line.
September 7th, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so but people, you got a single coming sooner than that?
Yeah, that'll be coming out May 25th, I believe. Yeah.
11th album.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And 30 years coming up next year since Let Love Rule.
That's what they say.
You feel like that to you?
Not at all. Not at all. It seems like it was yesterday.
It does.
It really does.
Because we were talking about that too. I was working in radio at the time, and I remember getting that record, and it does seem like yesterday. And it's a record that still holds up so well. Are you a guy that goes back and listens to your old music, or are you always thinking forward?
No, I always move forward. The only time I have to listen to it was when I'm teaching the band stuff for tour. And I have to go and listen and go, wait, how did that go? And that's when I hear. But I don't go home and like put the record on. That's too much for me, man.
How so? What do you mean?
It's just a lot of man. When I put those records on, I can smell, feel, taste everything about my life at that time, which is cool, But it's just a lot. It's a lot.
What were you thinking when you were that kid making Let Love Rule? I mean, what I've always loved about your career, and I've seen you live many times, and I love this as well, is that you touch on so many different things in your music. Some people will be surprised to learn that I'm such a big fan of your music because my core, I'm a hard rock guy.
Exactly.
I love loud guitars, but there's elements of that in your music. And of course you have the funky side and the R&B side and all that. So you're a guy, and we were talking a little bit before we started about we're the same age, we grew up in the same area, we liked a lot of the same rock bands, we both were big Kiss fans.
Absolutely.
For you, how did that stew come to be that was Let Love Rule? Where did all those elements come from?
Growing up around parents that were just into everything. My mother was a theater actress, later a television actress. My father was a journalist for NBC, and he was a producer of music, jazz. So I grew up seeing everybody. My first concert in New York City, I was probably 6, was the Jackson 5 at Madison Square Garden, James Brown at the Apollo, then going to see all these rock shows. I mean, because Sid Bernstein was a good friend. He was like a godfather to me. So we'd go to all the rock shows with Sid. Then but in New York it was mostly about soul, R&B, jazz, funk. Then I moved to LA when I was 11, and ended up in Santa Monica in 1975. So it was the whole Dogtown Z-Boy scene. That's where I learned about Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and Cream and The Who and Kiss. That's where I became a Kiss fan, right when I got to LA. So I have all this music inside of me. So when I made my first record, I couldn't stick to one thing because I just love music. So 1 minute it's more rock, 1 minute it's a little more funky, a little more R&B, a little more blues, a little more gospel, a little more whatever. And it continues today.
Sure.
That way. Different sounds for me tell different stories and have different moods. So I'll use them.
See, that I find that interesting because as a kid, for me, I was exposed to all sorts of different music as well. And there was always music in my house, my parents playing different things. But once I sort of honed in on rock, and as a kid, and not now I'm a little bit more open-minded, but as a kid, the power of hard rock music, like anything else that I knew up to that point had to be pushed to the side. Like it was like you had to be on, like I was all in on that team, and I like looked at anything else as like a threat to the music that I loved.
Yeah.
So that's what I always found interesting about you and other people I know too, that it was about more inclusion than just being down that one lane.
Yeah, because my life was so that. Especially, and also being, mixed, being black and white, and hanging out with all groups of kids. It's like, I didn't stay in one. So I was the kid in school that got to go around to all the different cliques and hang out with all of them.
And they all accepted you?
Yeah, because the cliques, it was weird. It's 75 in LA. I remember going to the John Adams Junior High School in Santa Monica, and there was the black kids hanging out together. There were the surfers. There were the Mexicans. There were the nerdy sort of kids that, played Dungeons and Dragons. And, it was like all these different groups of kids. And they all stuck to themselves. The kids that were more motocross and BMX bikes versus skateboarding.
Right.
But they were real cliques, And I would just go around and hang out with all of them.
And is it true that, because I was telling you before, Slash is a good friend of mine. I know, of course,
we went to high school together.
You went to high school, right?
Yeah.
Were you friends?
We weren't friends, but I knew him. We were like, cool. I never went to his house or anything, but I used to see him in the hallway a lot.
And so
He and I were in the hallway a lot. and then ditching. But yeah.
So when did you, because of course he plays and co-wrote with you Always on the Run. When did you reconnect after you became established musicians?
I was at the American Music Awards when they won a bunch of awards, and Let Love Rule had just come out. And we saw each other. We were sitting near each other at the awards, and it had nothing to do with Lenny Kravitz or Guns N' Roses. We were both
the dude that had the hall pass.
I remember you. It was like, and then we talked. And we're like, oh wow, we both went to school together, and then we got friendly again. And then at the end of whatever tour. So what tour would that have been? Because we cut Always on the Run in '90, which came out in '91. So they were just finishing. What tour would that have been for them?
For Guns?
Yeah.
It would have been Use Your Illusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because he took the Concorde from London, showed up in New York. They used to land like around 8:30, 8:45 in the morning, came straight to my house at that ungodly hour.
Right.
And then we both went out to Hoboken and cut that song.
Wow. So your musical connection came later on. It wasn't so much based on being in the same high school at the same time.
No, we just like, okay, you're doing your stuff, I'm doing my stuff, let's play together.
Yeah.
I think the first thing he did was I can't remember which was first, but he did the solo on Feels of Joy.
Right.
On Mama Said. And then I think that was the first thing.
Yeah.
Out in LA. And then I said, why don't we write something? And so he planned it. He came the day his tour ended. He came straight to New York, and we did that.
Tell me about, and I'm of course going to touch on the new record, which is coming out more, but I'm fascinated about that earlier period because you played essentially everything on the first record yourself and wrote everything. And where in your makeup coming up as a musician did you learn everything? Were you self-taught on everything? Did it happen very easily for you?
It was junior high and high school. I started out playing guitar, when I was a kid in New York. My dad had an acoustic guitar.
That was the first thing.
Yeah, and piano, because we had a little upright piano in the apartment. And then when I got to LA, I started playing drums. So I always wanted to be a drummer, but living in a tiny apartment in New York, that wasn't going to happen. My mom, we couldn't have drums. And so I started playing drums in junior high school. And then after that, I started playing bass. So I just always liked to play different instruments. Yeah. And it was never a plan on the first record to start playing all the instruments myself. I couldn't afford to pay people to play, and the people that I could afford didn't play the way that I felt they should. And so then my engineer was just like, dude, I've heard you play all the instruments, just do it yourself. And I was like, do it myself. That's no fun. I want people around, But in the great tradition of people like Stevie Wonder and Todd Rundgren and Paul McCartney and Prince and who have done that, I was like, okay, cool. I love those records. Let me try and play it myself. And I did, and that became my sound, and I'm still doing it today.
Yeah, I was going to. There have been times where you've had other people play on records,
yes,
of course.
Yeah, of course. And Craig Ross, my partner, is an amazing guitar player.
I want to talk about him because I agree. Yeah,
very underrated cat, like extremely.
But for you, did it get to a point when you realized that worked and that you had that sort of
sound, and I liked the process.
Yeah.
And there was something about...
How does the process start, Lenny? What do you build on first? Do you do it as if you had a band? Like, will you start laying down bass and drums?
On Let Love Rule, for instance, starting with that first album, I either went and played the drum track first whilst singing the song in my head, which is quite a thing to keep in time and keep everything grooving the way you want. Or I would have somebody play, like my engineer is a keyboard player. And so he would play whatever, a piano, a Fender Rhodes, whatever, while I would play the drum track so I could hear somebody. I'd teach the song,
right,
play with it, and then erase that and then start over, But yeah, it was normally drums, guitar, bass, then more guitars, if they're, and then build up from there, whether there's percussion or horns or orchestra or whatever overdubs there might be.
And in the 30 years,
keyboards,
almost 30 years since you've done Let Love Rule, obviously so much has changed the way studios work and technology all that. So do you find that beneficial? I mean, you're at your core, correct me if I'm wrong, more of an old school guy.
Yeah.
Are you still a guy that wants to record on tape, or have you embraced all the digital stuff? Or
I use a little bit of both. I have tape, I have Pro Tools, I have all that. But the equipment in my studios is all pretty it's vintage. I have like a museum of vintage equipment, down to the board that I use, which is a Helios, which is the same board that would have been in Olympic when Hendrix was doing his first album, or Zeppelin. Actually, I bought it from Leon Russell.
Oh, wow.
Board. And I have lots of great outboard gear and compressors and all this tube equipment and microphones, and so it's primarily an old school studio. But I like the sound of that equipment. I think it just has such a pure sound.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about so you're building these records and
even vintage synthesizers now, which are like from the late 70s and 80s,
Yeah.
I have a great collection of them as well.
But you're building this layer of music and all this stuff, but obviously before you even get to that point, you need to create the songs, you need to write the songs.
Absolutely.
And as a fan, the talent that I've always been most impressed by is artists' ability to write great songs. Like, I feel like, not to diminish great musicians, but you can go to LA or New York and you can throw a stone and you can find an amazing guitar player.
You can find guys who can play riff and have all this stuff and play fast. Whatever.
But the ability to write and consistently write great songs.
I think to write, as you said, and also to groove.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of musicians that can play a lot of notes, or a lot of drummers that can play these big solos, and you're like, wow. But then you ask them to play 2 and 4. And sometimes the groove is not there.
Yeah.
So groove is something that's something that you're gifted with. And yeah, same thing obviously with songs. I mean, when you look at the best songwriters, whether it be Paul McCartney or Elton John or whomever, or Lionel Richie, anybody that just is a songwriter, and you go to those shows and you're just like, my God, the arsenal of songs that are the fabric of our lives. It's amazing.
So when did you know you could write songs? When did you first start? Because
I didn't really know till Let Love Rule, to tell you the truth. Because before that, I was really trying to find it. And I was experimenting.
You weren't even Lenny Kravitz before
No.
that. You were working under the name Romeo Blue, and a whole other thing.
And I wanted to be in a band. I wanted to be the guitar player, the drummer, the bass player. I had no intentions on being the singer and being in the front. Really didn't. But I ended up being in some bands, and at one point, like, the singer wasn't happening, and then they looking at me like, "Well, you do it," And I was like, okay, I'll try. And then I kind of got more into it, and then right before Let Love Rule, that record just came to me. I was doing all kinds of other things, playing with other people, making demos for people. I used to be the guy you could rent to, like, go make your demos. I'd play all the instruments and learn your songs, and I'd play them and produce them. I used to, make pocket money doing that. But Let Love Rule just came to me.
Like, when you say that, did you just wake up with those songs in your head?
All of a sudden, I was trying to write, and the things I was trying to write, I thought they were mediocre, and then I just got, just like with this album, just sometimes you just get quiet. And I just got quiet, and my life was going in a certain way, and I was with Lisa Bonet at the time, and we were having this amazing relationship and living this incredible sort of hippie lifestyle that we were living in the late 80s, and we were in love, and this record just came. Like I just heard it, and I was like, there it is.
That's amazing. So you wake up, you go into your studio, and these songs just start pouring out.
I just hear them, or I wake up in the middle of the night with them. So it's when I stopped trying that it happened.
Have you found that to be the case throughout the rest of your career?
This whole album, I dreamt.
Raise Vibration, the same thing.
Raise Vibration, I dreamt the whole album. Now, normally I'll dream 2-3 songs, and the rest you put together, but you're flowing creatively, so you feel good, and this whole record was dreamt.
So when you
say waking up,
you wake up and write stuff down?
Yeah, or run to the studio, or grab my phone and start singing into the voice memo. You
smoking a lot of weed before you go to bed, or what's going on, man? Popping Ambien? What are you doing?
It just comes, man.
Really?
Yeah. And so that was the whole exercise with this record, because after making records for 30 years, which isn't that long compared to, say, the 50 years of other people.
But it's a long
but 30
time.
years is a long time.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure where I was going. I wasn't sure who I was creatively at that moment. Who am I? What do I have to say? What's authentic to me right now? I wasn't sure. I had to take a moment, got quiet, was in the Bahamas, was living my little island lifestyle, and woke up one night with a song in my head, and went in the studio, started working on that. And what happens once you start working on something that you were given, and you get into it, now you're open. Things start opening up, and then the floodgates open, and now these songs are coming.
So every night you dream
in
one?
Not every night,
or?
but it could be once a week, could be twice a week, could be twice a month. It depends. But that's what happened with this record, and I let that happen. I got out of the way. I stayed out of the way. I took all the opinions out of the way. Also, there was a lot of people saying, you should do this, you should try that. You need to be relevant today, and to do this, and try this new music, and it's like, okay, that's cool, but I'm me, and I need to be me.
And you were never that.
Never,
I mean, when you think
ever.
about Let Love Rule coming out in 1989, there was nothing like that.
That record was dry and organic, and at that time the big records were like, say, the comparisons would have been like Bon Jovi records, which had like big, gated reverbs and
big gang choruses,
and like big, that 80s big sound,
all that
Power
stuff.
Station and all that kind of stuff. And here came Let Love Rule, which was like dry and very organic and very intimate. And that's what I was hearing. That's what I wanted to do.
But I mean,
and
that
the records continued.
Yeah, that was so refreshing to me, because I was working even then in rock radio, and I remember getting Let Love Rule like it was yesterday. I'm sure I still have the promo CD. And I remember getting it, and against everything that was going on at that time, because so much of the stuff started to all sound the same because it was produced so much the same.
That's when the production value was like a big thing.
Yeah, and it was a blueprint. There was the verse and the big gang chorus, and it jumped out at you. And then all of a sudden this record comes out, and I remember reading it, and it's like, wait a minute, this was done in Hoboken, and it's like, how do I not know this dude? He's local. And it was just like, it by being so very organic sounding and so different sounding, it jumped out from the fray. So you've never been somebody that's you've always kind of done it your way, and it's worked.
Well, I'm talking to you. I'm still here talking to you. Thank God.
Yeah, almost 30 years later, man. After that first record with a new record.
You look amazing.
Oh, come on, man. I was saying on the air before, I said, this is on Facebook Live. People want to see you. They should put a box over my head.
No.
We'll come right back with more. A lot more to cover with Lenny Kravitz. The new album is called Raise Vibration. It's coming out September 7th, you said?
Yes, sir.
September 7th.
Yes.
Little ways to go, but there will be a single coming soon. And what's the song going to be that's the single?
It's called Low.
I've heard some of the record, so I want to talk about some of the tracks on it, and I want to talk about, obviously, do this forever. Tons of stuff with Lenny Kravitz as we come right back here on SiriusXM 106 Volume Trunk Nation, and of course back for our audience on Facebook Live too. More with Lenny Kravitz.
Essential listening for any rock fan. Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk.
The crowd is just very intense.
Bands you like, bands you don't.
SiriusXM
Killing it.
Volume. Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk.
So popular.
Essential listening for any rock fan. It's awesome. I listen every day. SiriusXM's
The Truth and Rock.
Volume.
All right, we are back talking with Lenny Kravitz here on Trunk Nation on SiriusXM 106 Volume. Something I wanted to do for a very long time, and we're just starting to scratch the surface a little bit. Lenny's new album is out September 7th. It's called Raise Vibration, his 11th album. You're always on tour, man. You're always playing somewhere, right?
I tour a lot. That's why there's usually three, sometimes 4 years between albums, because I tour for a long time, you know?
Is that your favorite part of it, or you like being in the studio?
The studio is my favorite, I have to admit. I mean, I love playing live because that exchange is so amazing, and going around the world and seeing the people is always beautiful. But that magic that happens in the studio, like we were talking about earlier, I live for that.
Yeah, and of course, you've always had amazing live bands. You make these records yourself for the most part, but then you've got to go deliver it live. And
Yes.
I imagine for you, it's really important to find people that have your vision and can get it over. And the one guy that's been to your side, at your side the whole time, who you mentioned before, and I wanted to bring up because I think I don't know him personally, but I'm such a fan of his playing and what he brings is Craig Ross.
Is amazing. One of the best guitarists ever. And those that know. In fact, when we did the Kennedy Honors thing for Led Zeppelin, I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
Page gave it up to Craig.
Wow.
He was like, "Oh yeah," you know. But Craig, what's amazing about Craig is that he can play any genre authentically, and he's just such a monster player. And of course, we wrote "Are You Gonna Go My Way" together. I mean,
I wanted to ask you about that because if you look at your catalog of songs, and you've had a lot of hits, and then you've got some songs in your catalog that are deep tracks that I absolutely love as well. But when you think about it, I would think most people would look at "Are You Gonna Go My Way" if they only casually know Lenny Kravitz as the song they know, as the song in your history to this point. When you and Craig wrote that song, even that riff, which is becomes so iconic, did you know when you write? Dude, do you know you're making something?
Had no idea.
No idea what's going to jump out.
That song was cut in 5 minutes. We were getting to the end of a session, and we came up with this thing. At that time, even on my third album, I still wasn't booking out studios 24 hours yet. The next client was waiting to get in to their session, which would start like at 3 o'clock. I used to go to the studio at 9 a.m., dude. Because there was
cheaper.
There was cheaper. There was an opening. It was a thing, and
so you weren't in the lockout phase at that point.
Not yet. And I was like, when am I going to be able to just have the studio to myself, keep the board? Because this is pre-Pro Tools and all that. So you'd have a song up, and now you're loving the mix. You're loving how it's sounding. You got to take it down, come back tomorrow, start over again. But anyway, the next client was coming in. We came up with this thing, put it down in 5 minutes, and went home with this track with no words, no melody. I played it over and over and over the entire night on my boombox at home. Wrote it down on a.
Who had the riff? Was the riff there yet? The open?
No, the riff was there. The whole song was cut. Okay. There was just no vocal and no melody. No lyric.
Right.
So that night I write it. I go back in the next morning. I sing the thing. I had no idea what that was going to be. I thought this is so foreign to what's going on the radio, and I don't know. There were things in one speaker. There was all this phasing at one point. The whole track phases.
Right, there's a phase.
The whole track, everything, drums, bass, guitar. The whole thing phases. Things were out of phase. I remember when it first came on MTV. There was actually we had to fix a mix because there was music not coming out of the speakers. It was like they were canceling each other out. And when we started to work that song, it took a long time. For radio, for MTV, it took a long time. But I believe that video had a lot to do with it as well. I met Mark Romanek, the director of that video, who
really cool stuff.
It was just a simple video, but it was so effective.
Yeah.
And the visual and the whole thing, and it all helped. But then once it got over, that was it. It was like never went away, but it was a thing.
So to this day,
I don't know hit songs. To answer your question,
do you know? Do you know when you write something what's going to be?
I know when I write something that I like, and I go, well, that's a hit to me.
Right.
But a hit to me, I don't know if that's a hit to other people. You know, it's interesting. I think the only time I ever knew I had a hit was when I wrote again for the greatest hits.
I was going to, it's funny you bring that up. I wanted to ask you about that because I love that song. And when that came out as the bonus track on the greatest hits record,
that was the
I said to myself, was this something he passed on and didn't put on a record? Because this is a smash.
They called me, the Nancy Berry, who was running the label. She called me. She says, we're gonna do a greatest hits album. First of all, I thought it was greatest hits. I've only made a few albums.
Am I done? You dropping me?
No, greatest hits, like already? Like you're supposed to be old when you do that. But she's like, no, it's time for a greatest hits. She goes, but we need one song, and we want it to be a mid-tempo ballad. That's what we. So I'd never done that thing before, where somebody said, this is what we want, and you got to deliver it on this day. Never. But I had this challenge, and I had a month to do it, and came up with that song, crafted it, worked on it. I mean, really had a direction for that. And when it was done, I was like, okay, that's a hit. That's a hit. And it was. But that's the only time I knew. The only other time I knew I had a hit song was when I gave Justify My Love to Madonna. Mm-hmm. I called her and I said, I have a #1 song for you. I had just come off the road from the Let Love Rule tour. I was nobody. I was the new kid on the block. And so those are 2 times.
And it didn't help that you were giving it to the biggest pop star in the world, who at that point, even if it was a bad song, she probably could have found a way to make it hit.
Because that was when she was doing her Immaculate collection.
The book,
So she was, killing it, as she was for a very, very, very long time. And
again, is one of my favorites, man. I love your vocal on it. I love the drum sound on it. It's just that big smack.
That was cut in my house in Miami at the time. And we worked on that drum sound for probably a week.
Oh, so you did put a lot into it.
My engineer, who, I mean, we used to fight over it because, I mean, it's like a week. It's like, okay, I really think it's got that vibe. It's got enough of that Bonham-esque sort of thing in the drums that I liked at that time. And he to this day still doesn't like that drum sound. I was like, I think it worked, man. But that drum sound was a big thing. That was like the center of the track.
Yeah, it jumps right out at you. It drives the whole thing.
Exactly.
It's awesome. Let me turn that around on you. Had there been songs that you wrote, I'm sure there have been, that you're like, this is a stone cold smash, and it just tanked, nobody cared? Was there ever 1 or 2 of those that you wrote that you were just convinced it's the single, it's the hit, and then it just didn't go the distance?
I'm trying to think. You look at me, I'm like, yeah, I've had nothing but success.
All my songs are hits.
What are you talking about? No, it's happened. It's happened. I'm just trying to think when and what.
Right.
But it's happened, yes.
Well, while we're talking about songs that I made a little hit list of your catalog of songs I absolutely love. Okay. We're not going to have time for you to give me great detail on all of them.
I'd be curious to know what.
But I want to know,
you like.
Well,
knowing so much of the other things.
Well, I could give you a deep track that I would maybe say my favorite Lenny Kravitz album if I had to pick a Circus.
You know, okay, but let me tell you. So last night with Questlove, they were saying, so how come nobody likes Circus? And I said, the fans. That was the fans' record. They loved that record.
I love it.
And it was coming after Arguing on My Way, and it was a strange record, but it was a very cool record. And I was going through a lot at that time. My mom was dying of cancer. You know, the whole record thing and the fame and all that comes with. It was just a circus going on in my life at that time.
Yeah, even the title track is just.
But which is your track?
With a deep track?
Yeah.
Beyond the Seventh Sky.
I knew it. I knew it.
You talk about Zeppelin
and
like
Trunk's ears. That track was cut in a castle in France. I cut half the record. Well, that record went through 3 studios: New York at Waterfront in Hoboken, the Bahamas, Compass Point, and I rented this chateau in France. because I wanted to do my Stone Zeppelin thing and go rent a castle and live out there and cut a record.
Remote truck out in the driveway.
Exactly. And that was cut. There was this big sort of ballroom in that chateau, and those drums on Beyond the Seventh Sky.
And that's that Bonham behind the beat.
Yeah. I was channeling Bonham.
It's a heavy song. It's probably one of the heaviest songs you've done.
Record. Yes.
Yeah.
When I come back to the States, I'm gonna add that to the set list.
Oh man, that would be badass.
Yeah.
But even on that song, like a song like Rock and Roll Is Dead, which people try to make that claim now about rock and roll. But what were you saying back then in that song?
It was more, I wasn't really, it was kind of a weird song because I wasn't talking really about rock and roll is dead. I had some friends in a very big band. I won't say who because everybody knows who they are. And they were really ruining themselves with a lot of drugs and really going down a path that I thought was sad and to an excess, not fun anymore, to an excess, to their detriment. And I was having a talk with them and say, why are you doing this to yourself, man? And they were saying, because we got to be rock and roll. And so when I said rock and roll is dead, what I was saying was, if you listen to the lyrics really carefully, I was basically saying, that's dead, man. You don't have to do that to be rock and roll. Rock and roll is dead, bro. You don't need that.
Right.
Just be who you are and be rock and roll. So it was kind of it was a little ambiguous, but it was taken as Lenny Kravitz said, rock and roll is dead. How dare he, And then Prince actually answered me with a song called Rock and Roll is Alive and Well and Lives in Minneapolis. I don't know if you ever heard that track, but he answered me, which was fun. But but that's a cool track as well.
So many great ballad on that record too.
Can't Get Off My Mind.
Oh God! Yeah. I mean, what a vocal on that. Kind of almost a precursor to Again in a way.
Absolutely.
In the structure of the song and everything.
Absolutely.
But that was a song that I thought should have been I mean, I know it did okay, but I thought it should have been a massive hit.
Right.
I thought it was amazing.
Thank you.
Getting away from the circus record, some of the other stuff. Well, I was always interested in, you had a big hit with American Woman doing the Guess Who cover. You haven't done a lot of covers in your career, but why that song? Why did you decide to do that?
I got a call from Guy Oseary, who was dealing with the Spy Who Shagged Me soundtrack and movie, and he says, we want you to cut American Woman for the movie. And I thought, what am I going to do with that? It's like, it's perfect. It's amazing. Like, I'm not going to touch that song. He said, just try it. Just do it. I was in Miami at the time. I think I started it there. And, I said, okay, let me try and mess with it. And so I got into it and I listened to it and I found my way. I started cutting it. And it's obviously very different. But again, I had no idea about that.
But if you're going to do a cover, I would think the idea is to make it your own.
Yes.
Why do it if it's going to be?
And so I did, and it came out, and it was like, then they're like, you got to make this video. We're getting traction. We made this big video.
Yeah.
Heather Graham was in it. Huge song, Grammy. Like, I was like, it's amazing. But the beautiful thing was then Burton Cummings called me
from the Guess Who.
Yeah, and was like, thank you so much. And I love.
I'm sure he liked getting the publishing
I love
too.
what you did, and that's the whole thing. There were some new houses bought. There was
just bought a car, Lenny. Thanks.
There was a tour. No, they were talking about houses. Houses. They were buying houses, man. And they went back on tour.
Yeah.
And so that was the beautiful thing. Like, I made a friend. I honored him with the cover. He liked it a lot, and then it was a win-win for everybody. So it was like, and then I ended up meeting them. I went up to Much Music in Canada and got to meet them. I think we even played it together. But that was a very interesting thing because I had no idea what to do with that song. And next thing, it's like one of these songs that there's a lot of people that don't realize that it's the Guess Who. They think it's my song. I'm like, no, it's not mine.
Yeah, you figured out what to do with it because it's amazing. We got to go to a break, and then I got some people from Facebook Live that want to chime in, and we're going to ask their questions. But I'm just going to give you my list real quick that I had. Well, of course, Always on the Run, Fields of Joy, Stillness of Heart, I love.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I love that
That's
track.
one of my favorites,
Dirty
too.
White Boots, more recent, from Strut, love that. Beyond the Seventh Sky, I mentioned. Believe, I love. I mean, it goes on and on,
I'm taking your list so I can.
I'll help.
So I can get the set list going.
I can. If you'd like me to write the set list, I will. But
I would love that.
Probably 90% of people would leave because they wouldn't. I'd have deep tracks on it, and people would like, "Well, I want to hear this." So
I want the Eddie Trunk set list, bro.
It'll have to be at a small, intimate club for only hardcore fans.
No, but I'm gonna
only.
get a few of those in.
Yeah.
I'll get Believe in. I'll get Always on the Run in. I'll get. Anyway, we'll go through it all.
Sky. You're not going to. You're going to do that.
Well, Gail, my bass player, who's amazing, Gail Ann Dorsey, who you would know, she played with Bowie for 15 years before me. That bass part is really like out there and crazy, and she's like,
she wants to dig into it.
No, she doesn't want. She
doesn't want to do it.
Please don't make me. Please don't make me learn that song.
Coming right back with more with Lenny Kravitz here on SiriusXM Volume and Facebook Live. And yes, I got your questions here. You guys watching, we're going to hit Lenny with them right after this.
Volume.
Music talk that rocks.
Alice Cooper, Pink Floyd, Kiss, bands like that.
Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk.
All types of rock, not just the hard stuff.
SiriusXM.
Big fan.
Volume. Eddie Trunk. Think of him as Wikipedia for rock music, except accurate.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Trunk Nation with Eddie Trunk. SiriusXM's Volume.
All right, Lenny and I've got a whole nother show to do when we end this show with no cameras or microphones. But, I mean, I've been wanting to do this for so long, so this is awesome. Let's include some people here who are watching on Facebook Live. Max, who's on Twitter, wanted to know about the songwriting process for the Circus album in 95. So, well, there you go. I mean, it's the fan record, apparently, because they're asking. We kind of touched on Circus already and what was going on there. Let's go to, it looks like Valencia, who's also on Twitter, writes, before Prince's death, did you and he have any further plans to perform or do music together?
Yes, we had talked about, he had kept bringing up this tour that we would do together. And, he's like, we should do this. We should go out and tour together and we'll flip-flop. One night I'll close, one night you'll close, and we'll just go around and do this tour. And we talked about it for like a few years, but unfortunately, that never happened. We played in the studio. He'd come to my shows and play. I'd go to his shows and play. But as far as us doing a tour together, that was the plan. I'm
a big fan of the band Soul Asylum. And Dave Pirner actually told me that he and Prince had recorded one of Dave Pirner's songs.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That Soul Asylum's drummer, Michael Bland, was Prince's drummer.
Yes.
And Michael told me that he recorded it with Prince, and it was one of Pirner's songs, and Dave was like blown away to
I'm
find
sure it's
out.
In the vault. They're going to find it.
Yeah, but Dave was like blown away to find out that this had happened. For you, do you know, was there things that maybe Prince did of yours, or did you guys write stuff that hasn't seen the light of day? Is there stuff in the vault with Lenny Kravitz?
Yes, and they were, as he called them when we did them, they were like souvenirs, mementos. Like, we'll just put it.
New original material?
Yeah, stuff that we did at Paisley.
Right.
And just put it in the vault.
So do you have copies of it?
I have copies of one thing, yes.
And is Prince on it as well? Or?
Yes, both of us are playing all the instruments and doing everything, and it's in there.
Right.
And then there's things that I'm on that I still won't say to this day because they were like he'd say, "Come here and do this," whether it's sing or do something or do, and you'd have to really listen and say, "Oh, that's Lenny." You know what I mean? They were just like little secret mementos. Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing.
Which were cool, man.
Yeah. So maybe at some point, once they dig into his vaults, we'll get some of this stuff. You think? Would you like that to happen?
There's one thing that I'd love to finish that we started. Yeah, that I know in particular that's funky.
Is it maybe something you would do on your own for one of your records?
Yeah, or finish it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Let's see here. Whoever's handwriting is just awful here. I thought mine was bad. This is. I can't read who the person is that's asking this, but they want to know. My kids who are 10 and 14 watching the Hunger Games, and you're on my TV now all of a sudden because they're all of a sudden obsessed with this movie, and I had no idea you had done that film because I hadn't seen it till they started.
I had no idea I'd done it.
So I mean, obviously a massive movie series, and you're in a couple of them. I know acting. You've done some other stuff too. You had a show, Star. Was it?
Well, that was with Lee Daniels. I just did a couple of guest appearances because I had done 2 of his movies, The Butler and Precious.
Right.
And so it just started like, I don't know. I just got called and like, why don't you do this? And then the director of Hunger Games saw Precious and he's like, why don't you come do this? And then someone else like called and I just ended up doing several movies. But it was fun. It was amazing. I love the collaboration. And I'm going to do more films. I'm actually going to make my own film coming up in the next year. But right now I'm getting ready to go on the road and just play music.
Did you you dabbled in acting a little bit before music? Did you do some commercials and stuff?
And I did theater. 'Cause my mother was a theater actress, and I did plays, I did theater, I did all that when I was younger. But then when the music bug really hit me, I was like, I put blinders on, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a secondary thing. Music's still the primary thing for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see here. This looks like Gretchen watching on Facebook Live. Dream artist you'd love to work with and never got the chance to yet.
Dream artists I've never, the ones that I got to work with, like, I worked with Michael Jackson, I worked with Bowie, I worked with, Prince, I worked with
Madonna.
There's guy, Curtis Mayfield. But I'm trying to think who, I can't answer that question. Aretha Franklin. I would love to write and produce something for Aretha Franklin.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go, Gretchen. This is Roseanne. She wants to know, what inspires your fabulous fashion sense?
I guess that comes from my mother, growing up in New York City with my mom in the 70s, and she had great style, and all her friends, I used to be around Miles Davis and all these folks, and they all dressed really cool and had cool apartments, and so I really got that from being around my mom and being around her group of artists. Yeah.
What's the Lenny Kravitz closet look like, man?
There's like storage. I don't know. It's a lot of stuff.
Suffice it to say, it's a walk-in.
It's a lot of stuff. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Or do you go to cities and like look at clothes, or you he's going to shops and finding spots and stuff?
I used to do that a lot. I used to go to all the thrift stores like back in the 90s when that was really happening. Now thrift stores are like the same price as like boutiques on Madison Avenue.
Concert shirt, $75, right?
75. Shit, man. They got ones that are like 1,000. This 1970 something Stones or Zeppelin shirt. But I love fashion. I love the art of fashion. It's one of the things that I'm into, as well as photography and design. And
I wanted to ask you about that. For people that don't know, you've got a book or two, right? That you got into photography somewhat recently?
I did a book, and I did an exhibition that went around the world to some different countries. And I have a design firm called Kravitz Design, and we do interior design and architecture and products, and we design everything, from couches to cutlery to lighting fixtures and door handles and carpets and hotels. We do hotels. I designed a Leica camera that I'm doing my second camera that's coming out this year, and a Daytona Rolex watch and blah blah blah. So there's all kinds of things, tiles. And
how'd you get into that though? There's always been a visual sense to what you do, but the actual designing something, architecturally, you're coming up with the stuff. Are you drawing? Are you writing? How are you doing
I draw
that?
very crudely, and then the people that really know what they're doing put it in the computer and make sure that it will stand up. But I just always loved design. Right. And when I had my first apartment, when I was doing Let Love Rule, I was renting an apartment on Broome and Mercer, and I couldn't afford to buy furniture, and I couldn't afford to get a decorator to come in and work. So I did it. I was like, let me just do it myself. And I would find things on the street. People would put out couches and tables and chairs on the street, and I would fix them up and, you know, repurpose them, and I would do the interiors myself and with friends, and so just kind of like just hanging out doing stuff. And then it got into like this, turned into like a sickness. and then I was like, you know what? I kept buying places and redoing them, selling it, buy another one, redo it, sell it. And after a while, I was just like, I can't keep doing this. So I started a firm where I could do it for other people.
I was going to say, I sense like a reality show here somewhere.
Right.
Lenny Kravitz flips your house or something like that. But you can actually, on a serious note, you can actually go to your site, LennyKravitz.com, and there's a link to that I noticed, which is Kravitz Design. So you have a business there.
I have an office here in New York on Crosby Street.
If somebody did want to use you, they can, and you would oversee it. I would think. Is that how it would work?
We design. We do. We have. We just built a house in Los Angeles, an amazing house up in Hollywood Hills that just sold for $33 million, and we just finished a hotel in Toronto called Bisha, and so we're doing all these different projects around the world.
Right.
Nightclub in Paris, all kinds of things.
Speaking of going to Paris, which you said you also live, I know you got dates coming up. You're playing throughout Europe and stuff. And I was looking at the dates, and I noticed. I mean, you as a headline act are playing huge places over there. You certainly have a tremendous following here in America as well. But suffice it to say, is it bigger in Europe? In terms
I
of
don't know
your
if it's
draw,
bigger, but I've been touring there more. But I'm coming back here after that, and I'll be playing arenas and some festivals here in the States that you'll hear about.
Right.
Yeah.
But why do you think they gravitated towards your music so much there? I find it interesting. There's artists that always were real big there, but not. You look at whether it be Thin Lizzy or T-Rex in that world, that over there a whole different thing.
The label sent me there first. They were like, we don't know what to do with you, Lenny Kravitz. You got this name, and you're making this music, and you're black, white, and it's this and it's that, and it's not one genre, so it's not just rock or it's not just R&B. Or what do we do? Send them to go to Europe. Sent me to Europe. Sent me to Paris. Sent me to London. Sent me to Amsterdam, and sent me to Hamburg, Germany. And I broke in Paris and London and Hamburg and Amsterdam. Those were the 4 places that I broke. I think they weren't as concerned with being in a box. And then I came back to America, and it started to happen. But Europe started it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you make of where we are now? Because obviously so much has changed since it's been almost 30 years since Let Love Rule in terms of the way the business works. Do you think an artist like what you're doing, which is a wide net of music, do you think there's a way you could push through the clutter that's out there? I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, but
so
there's
hard,
so much out there.
At the same time,
now.
if there's a kid in his bedroom somewhere in his basement, wherever, can put it out, and it can be discovered without a label, without management, but
that's also the downside, though.
Exactly.
Because anyone could do it, so there's no real gatekeeping anymore.
It's hard to break through, and it's hard to, the whole thing is hard.
Yeah.
There's so much information, there's so much music, there's so many projects, there's so many films, there's so much content out there. The new Zeppelin record would come out when I was a kid. I was living in LA at the time after we moved there, and I remember going out to Tower Records, and people were lined up 3 days ahead of time, sleeping bags, tents, waiting for this. Back then, it was just like...
They did that for concert tickets, too.
I remember that,
I worked in a record store.
I remember that,
Yeah.
too. You'd line up to try to get them front row tickets. But there's just so much coming at people now. It's hard, man.
Yeah.
And then you've got, all these stations that are in... it's this. The station plays this.
Right. Classic rock doesn't play new music.
And this one
new
plays
music
that.
doesn't play classic.
That. And it's the same 15 songs all day. And it's,
right.
But anything can happen. That's the beauty of all this.
Well, listen, man, it happened for you. It's still happening for you. This was so much fun. I hope we can do it again.
We absolutely will.
And thank you, man. Thanks for the time.
Much respect to you, brother.
Same to you, man.
Yeah.
September 7th, the new album from Lenny Kravitz. It's called Raise Vibration. Comes out. Check it out. Hopefully we can do more around that record. We didn't talk about... The mandate was not to talk too much about that record yet. You'll be hearing it, be able to get it soon. Maybe we'll do more on that when the record is out there. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening on Volume, everybody, and safe travels, Lenny. Thank you, man.
Thank you.